What's up, everybody? It's Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to the Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow @Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers. And we're coming off another bubble MVP, TJ Warren performance against the Los Angeles Lakers. 39 points, including an insane dagger to finish the game. It's been probably the most fun story of the bubble across the entire NBA. Certainly the most fun story for the Indiana Pacers. We're going to talk about that today. The Suns game, Nate McMillan, our guards, and how much better they've looked over the last couple of games. We've got a lot of ground to cover, but we got to kick off with TJ buckets, getting more buckets. Alex, how fun is this?
This is the most fun I've had watching the Pacers in a long, long time. And I think, you know, for you guys, this is some of the best individual basketball, at least, I've ever seen from anyone in a Pacers uniform, man. We have been privileged with what he's given us this last week. And, you know, it is funny to me, though. I just want to point out, because I know Adam touched on this, but I'm seeing a lot of comparisons today to the Linsanity. So I just wanted to bring that up straight away on the podcast. That
Speak on it.
Please stop. Can we please stop comparing this to Linsanity? Jeremy Lin was averaging 2 points a game the season before he had his outbreak. Warren's been scoring buckets. So that's just a public service announcement for everyone. Just comparing him to Linsanity, you just got to stop the cap, as the kids say.
As the kids say, exactly right. If you think that TJ Warren and Jeremy Lin, the situations are similar, then that shows me two things. You don't watch Indiana Pacers basketball and you don't know what you're talking about. They are two completely different situations. Yeah. TJ Warren was a good starter on a playoff team. Jeremy Lin was a bench player that came out of nowhere. TJ Warren's made a leap. Jeremy Lin had a cameo. So, you know, we've got, obviously, I was talking to someone about this today, you need 2.5 All-Stars to win a championship in the NBA. Justin, we've got TJ Warren. We've got Victor Oladipo. We've got Domantas Sabonis. Do we have 2.5 All-Stars right now?
Right now, yes, we do. Who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs and going on to next year if TJ can keep up this hot streak and kind of put him into the upper echelon of other players. But I remember tweeting 2 weeks ago or a week ago, you can judge someone's basketball knowledge on what they think of TJ Warren. But now that's redundant because everyone knows how good everyone knows who he is. And it's been crazy to see the national media attention the Pacers have got recently. I've turned on ESPN and they're talking about the Pacers and TJ Warren on the jump and how excited they are for this TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler matchup coming up. Like the media is full on the Pacers bandwagon now, and it's really exciting to see. I think what goes missing in that final possession where you mentioned, Adam, when Warren hit that dagger was Oladipo had Alex Caruso guarding him. TJ Warren had LeBron James guarding him. Oladipo threw the ball to TJ Warren.
No hesitation.
Hits a shot over LeBron and Anthony Davis. Yeah. I just think that's crazy when you've got the best player on the team, the leader, the superstar, handing the ball over and say, you hit the shot on LeBron, and he doesn't.
Yeah. It's insane. A lot's been made of his defensive effort on Anthony Davis today as well. I mean, Anthony Davis struggled in this game. TJ Warren played extremely good defense. Didn't really and Goga as well. But, you know, we've spoken about this all year. This level of production has come as a surprise, but his defense overall, we've been talking about it all year. We've been talking it up. We've been talking his consistency. You know, his shot making has improved. His defensive effort has improved. His ability to get steals, his ability to defend one-on-one. And now we're not just seeing him put it together, but take it to a level that I don't think anyone, aside from maybe TJ Warren and those around him, thought he was capable of getting to. So massive props to TJ Warren for being able to get there. The challenge now is to maintain it. Alex, is this the new normal for TJ Warren, or is it something that's going to be remembered as TJ Warren's month or TJ Warren's bubble?
Well, I mean, I can't say we'll be seeing him averaging 35 a game, but just speaking on that defense, that goes to reiterate, doesn't it, how good, Dan Burke and everyone on that coaching staff really is, because it reminds me a lot of Bojan when he came in. You know, he was playing with the Nets and the Wizards. He was pretty terrible on defense. Like, he was getting cooked by most guys. Then he comes to Indy and he buys in. And it happens to a lot of players. So it's not just TJ. We've seen that with McDermott as well. Shout out to him. He's been pretty good on the defensive end, all things being considered. So, yeah, I think defensively, I think it's definitely the new norm for TJ Warren. And, you know, he had a game earlier in this bubble where he had, 4 blocks and 4 steals or something. He wasn't having that in Phoenix. So, you know, it's been definitely one of the most impressive things about him is the fact that he's brought in so much on the defensive end.
Yeah, not as if he's being guarded by scrubs the entire game. You've got Anthony Davis, LeBron James out there. Kyle Kuzma's no slouch himself. He's not as good as Twitter thinks he is, but he's definitely a lot better than your average replacement player. So the fact that Warren was able to do this consistently, firstly against Ben Simmons and now against the Lakers, who have one of the best defenses in the league, I think is grounds for considering the fact that this could continue moving forward. And that's obviously what the Pacers need. They need this to continue. The challenge now turns to 2 out of the next 3 games are against our old friends in Miami, and then potentially a 7-game playoff series against that team as well. Justin, we saw Phoenix really crowd TJ Warren. We saw, I think, Orlando try the same thing and really target him on the defensive end. I can see Miami doing something similar. Do you think TJ Warren's up to the task, or do you think this is going to be, I guess, a little bit of a letdown given the hype that it's got?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, because I think we mentioned on our last episode that we've got to kind of call the Jets. Teams are going to be more locked in on TJ Warren, and you saw the Phoenix Suns. You know, there's that screenshot of about 4 people guarding him.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's great. If teams want to do that against TJ Warren, it should only open up things for other players. So it's, you know, this Miami thing, TJ Warren might score 16, but it doesn't matter if Oladipo scores 25 and Miles Turner scores 20. So that's what we want. You know, remember the Paul George days where teams would just send 2 or 3 plays on him and we'd just have nothing. Yeah. Like, teams would literally trap him and there would be no second option. And it frustrated Paul George. And in a sense, Oladipo got that same treatment in the Cavs series. They'd trap Oladipo and he'd swing it out and no one would be there to hit the shot. So now if you want to trap TJ Warren, well, all right, go for it. Because then we got Vic, we got Brogdon, we got Miles, who can all hit a big shot.
Yeah, I was going to talk about particularly the backcourt, Alex, has looked so much better in the Lakers game, and Malcolm Brogdon particularly has looked better across the Lakers and the Suns games. It seems like he's a lot more comfortable in getting into his shot. It seems like the offense is coming a little bit more naturally to him. The rust has sort of come off, hasn't it?
Yeah, especially that 3 ball. I mean, I feel like I've been badgering on about it to you guys for a while. His shot the second half of the season just looked short, everything he took. So that was a massive concern for me. But yeah, in these last couple, man, he's looked fantastic. And obviously, I'm not taking anything away from Warren, but Brogdon was incredibly clutch as well this fourth quarter. He hit big 3 after big 3 against the Lakers. So it's massive for us. If he's hitting shots, we are a completely different team.
And Vic as well. I mean, Vic had 9 of 17 shooting, shot a couple of threes, 5 assists, had a steal. That's the sort of production we need from Victor Oladipo. If he can average over 20 points a game for the rest of the way, that's the guy that we wanted to get back. It's not necessarily the same guy that we had before the injury, but it's a guy that's going to be a leader on this team and be one of the top couple of scorers. I mean, if you can have Warren, Brogdon, Oladipo all up around that 18 to 22 points per game, then that just makes your offense all that much more seamless against every team.
Definitely when the bench isn't doing what they should be. Our bench has been, let's be honest.
I was literally just about to say McDermott and Justin Holiday have combined about 3 for like 30 odd from 3 in the bubble.
This bubble you imagine if TJ Warren wasn't on this tear and the bubble could be a completely different story. We could be talking about a whole different sort of thing here because, let's not glim over it. The bench has been downright awful without us.
Outside of McConnell,
yeah. I mean, Goga played well today. Sampson's been okay, but I mean, without our starting unit, they've carried us to a 4-1 record. And although we've had big victories over Philadelphia and Lakers, it is somewhat alarming because I've mentioned it to you guys. Indiana's bench is always tough. We always find it hard to get high bench scores. And, you need it in the playoffs when your starters rest. That 4 or 5 minute span, if you play someone like Boston or Milwaukee, they'll just go on a 10-0 spurt.
Yeah.
Like the Suns did, 21-0.
Yeah.
And I mean, with all due respect to the bench, though, imagine if Jeremy Lamb was out there with them. Imagine if Domas was in the starting rotation and Aaron Holiday was off the bench. Yeah. I mean, it's so tough because, they're doing the best they can, but all of our shot creation off the bench is gone. And that is Lamb and Aaron Holiday. They're supposed to be the two shot creators off the bench, the two facilitators off the bench, the guys to get everyone else involved, but also to be able to take over the offense late and bail us out with a decent shot. And, you're seeing a little bit of that in the starting lineup, and you're seeing that, there's been experiments with Oladipo with the bench. There's been experiments with Warren with the bench, Brogdon with the bench. They're sort of trying to understand what starter they can pair with that bench, like they paired Domas with the bench for large parts of this season. And at the moment, that's obviously lost. The two players that you'd want in that bench unit, one of them's a starter that's injured, and one of them's our ideal six-man that did an ACL. So it's tough. I mean, it's unfortunate that you can't bring in a new player and you can't bring in some shot creation from outside the bubble, inside the bubble, but we've just got to cope with what we've got. And I think the fact is that Warren, Oladipo or Brogdon or even Aaron Holiday have to run with the bench for large parts of the game and have to take over the offense for those times because Doug isn't shooting well, Justin isn't shooting well. The only thing that could potentially save us is, and this is scary to think about, is Goga. Alex, he had a really good game today. He arguably his best game since very early in the season, probably November, when he started a couple of those games. Like he had a key block shot there. He blocked LeBron. Hit a three. Like that's the sort of thing that we need from Goga. A couple of offensive rebounds. That's the production we need from our backup big, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like we've long said, we're not expecting Goga to go out there and drop double-doubles every night, are we? We think at the end of the day, if he can be consistent, if he can block, one shot off the bench and, like you said, knock down a couple shots, at this point you have to take that because you're just not getting that production from anywhere else without Domas. So, but yeah, it was impressive, especially the fact that he was going straight at AD. I think whether you like Goga or not, whether you think he should be getting regular minutes, you have to respect the fact that he does not care who he's going up against. Like he will play the same level. He will give whoever he's going up against 110%. So, he struggled, I think, late in his minutes today, but for the most part, he was really good.
Yeah, defensive effort was there, wasn't it, Justin? They say that defense is, 90% effort and 10% execution, and Goga was really obviously providing a bit of effort there, which is not what we've seen and which is where Sampson's excelled over the first few games. He always gives 110%.
Yeah, well, I mean, he guarded Anthony Davis probably better than Miles Turner did, let's be honest. Turner got in foul trouble again, which he did against Embiid. It's mentioned to you guys as well. It is getting a bit concerning that he struggles against the elite of the NBA. But Goga came in and, I was getting a bit concerned about Goga's growth. I know it's only his first year and he's so young, but, that potential of his first few games and first preseason games is gone. I saw a clip that Jay Michael uploaded yesterday and he was meant to screen Justin Holiday to get him open, and he just didn't even screen. It was really concerning. But I think that's why all Pacer fans are so happy because he came in, and you just want to see glimpses of a player being, can show his potential. And he showed that today. He did well against Anthony Davis. He can knock down a three. He played good defense. So, let's hope it's a bright spot for the long-term future of the Pacers.
I want to get back to Miles Turner, and I want to make a pretty bold statement and say that basically the next 3 weeks is the most important 3 weeks of Miles Turner's career. And the reason I say that is because he's going to come up against Bam Adebayo up to 9 times over the next 3 weeks. He's going to come up against him twice in this final scrimmage games or final seeding games, and then up to 7 times in the playoffs. Bam Adebayo is an all-star. Bam Adebayo is a guy that's potentially going to get the max from Miami next season, and he put the clamps on DeAndre Ayton today, but still got the L against Phoenix. Phoenix are on a tear at the moment, as we know, but Miles Turner has the opportunity to cement himself as a center moving forward that can match it with those great players. And if Bam Adebayo handles him, if he gets into foul trouble early, if he doesn't hit shots, if he doesn't assert himself against Bam, then I'm sorry, but it's hard to justify moving forward Miles Turner staying on this team over Domas Sabonis if you have to make that choice. And right now, we're talking about going small. We're talking about TJ Warren playing the 4. Oladipo said we're unstoppable when we go small. And Miles has the opportunity to really cement the fact that he should be that center in that small lineup over the next 3 weeks. And if he doesn't take advantage of it, I'm really concerned about his future on this team. Alex, I know it's a bold statement, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with anything there, to be honest. I think, for Miles, I think it tends to be, if it's not a good game for him in the first quarter, then it's not going to be a good game for him, if that makes sense. So I think for me, it's just about him finding that confidence. And the thing is, he looked good against the Wizards and then against the Magic. He had, was averaging like almost 20 points a game against those two. So
against two decent centers too, Bryant and Vucevic. They're no slouches.
Yeah, for me, it's just finding that confidence, and I want to see him shooting, 5 or 6 threes a game. If he's open, let it go, man. Like, we don't have many options off the bench scoring wise outside of, our top 3 guys. Who's taking the shots? So I think for me, it's just been the hesitation, the biggest concern. The hesitation and the lack of confidence in the 3-ball.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. And I think it's just concerning that Sampson got 7 rebounds in 10 minutes and Turner got his first rebound in the last quarter.
Yeah.
And nearly played triple the minutes. Like, rebounding. This episode could have been tailored very differently if we lost that game. Let's make no bones about it. Yeah. I know, we talk about small ball and the benefits of spreading the floor, but we could not rebound. Adam, you've mentioned it for weeks and weeks and weeks about rebounding. We're nearly becoming the Houston Rockets because there was that possession. Lakers had the ball
for
about
20 possessions.
It felt like half-court basketball. Pacers didn't have it down their half in about 4 minutes, it felt like. And the commentators mentioned it. It is scary. And, we're talking about, Miles, Sabonis, what's going to happen. Well, I mean, even if we got a win against a great team today, you can tell Sabonis is missed.
Yeah, it's a pick your poison. Right now, if Miles is on the floor, our offense looks probably more fluid. We move the ball a little bit better. There's obviously far better spacing. But if Domas is on the floor, and on the defensive end, obviously Miles can protect the rim. If Domas is on the floor, then our offense looks a little more bottled up, and we have to obviously look into that a little bit better and surround him with shooters. But on the defensive end, we'll get boards, but we won't be able to necessarily protect the rim as well. So we, at the moment, have the 2 major defensive pillars in rebounding and shot blocking in 2 different players that may not be able to sustain their place on this team together moving forward. And that's the concern. You have to kind of pick one, and then you have to surround them with players who can complement and hide for their weakness. If you have Miles out there, you got to have rebounders out there with him. If you have Domas out there, you have to have a really good defensive unit and a really good defensive scheme to be able to limit the attacks at the rim, basically, and those opportunities. Alex, it's getting, I guess, harder to see with such good small ball play. It's getting harder to see a future with the 2 big men, in my view. What do you think?
Yeah, it comes down to the playoffs. I think, if we get in there and we not only beat the Heat, but then compete in the second round and, if we get through the conference finals with small ball basketball, well, obviously Domas will be back by then, but if we were to win not just like one round, but 2 rounds with small ball, then that makes a decision for you. But if you get knocked out in the first round, then I think you have to run it back and go, you know what, we got 2 24-year-old guys here. They were playing their best basketball together before the season got suspended. Don't forget that. And we'll see how we go next season when we're fully healthy. So I think the front office is not going to want to make any major moves because KP and Chad and the rest of them, they haven't seen this team full strength. They don't know what, we've seen this team for 5 games with the full roster, or 6 games. So I don't think anything is going to happen this offseason. Maybe not even, it might not happen for another 12 months. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've heard some press this week, particularly on the Zach Lowe podcast, that suggests that the change might not come on the court. It might actually come off the court, which is in the form of Nate McMillan. Jeff Van Gundy and Zach Lowe were saying that that's the hottest rumor in the bubble, I think is the quote that I heard, that Nate, obviously his days were numbered. Now, we've been Nate defenders on this show. We've defended him on shows with Scott Agnes and with Jeremiah Johnson and, other guests that we've had on. We've talked about how well he prepares his team, how his team play really, really hard at all times. And to be fair, Zach Lowe and Jeff Van Gundy did go into that in detail and did detail that, when you play the Pacers, you have to come to play because they will go at 110% each time. But Justin, when a national or international podcast goes with that sort of news, you can't ignore it, can you?
No, and it's not someone who's done false, things to get their name out there. Jeff Van Gundy's not going to lie.
No.
He's a well-known ex-NBA coach, and like we spoke about, Adam, is Jeff Van Gundy's always a lover of coaches. He's obviously a previous coach, and he's not going to slander a coach or bring up a rumor that's not true. And I don't know. You guys need to give me a 2-minute Skip Bayless moment here because I have so many thoughts. I have held back on Twitter for so long, seen that many tweets, and I can't stand it anymore. Like, obviously, been an Indiana fan for 20 years, I've dealt with a lot, and I've mentioned it to a few fans recently. Every single coach the Pacers have had, they've wanted gone. Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Rick Carlisle, Frank Vogel, Nate McMillan. All of them. Sack them, they're gone. We want them gone. Their defense isn't good enough. Their offensive structure is not good enough. Well, Rick Carlisle went on to win a championship. Frank Vogel might go on to win a championship in a month. Sometimes it's the NBA is a player-driven league. People are like, we need the Steve Kerr instead of Mark Jackson. No, Mark Jackson built the Warriors up to a contending team where Steph, Clay, Draymond, and KD were ready to win a ring. That's not great coaching. Geez, I reckon, Adam, you could sit on the sideline and coach that Warriors team to a championship, honestly. Like, Miles Turner says Pacer fans have no chill, which I'm somewhat really agreeing with. And it can be a good thing that we don't expect mediocrity. We don't want 6th to 9th seed every year. We don't want to be, running the treadmill every year and not getting a high draft pick and just doing the same thing over and over again. I get that side of it. NBA is a result-driven business. If you don't win in the playoffs, you're gone. Like, I understand that. But to say Nate McMillan's in the hot seat now, 4-1 in the bubble, contending for 4th seed. What did you say, Alex? We've had our starters for 5 games this year. He's becoming such a scapegoat that any time we lose, it's just, fire Nate. Nate did terrible rotations. Like, he's just such a scapegoat. My question to you two, and I guess to the broader fan base listening, they can tweet us in. What do you expect as a fan base of Nate McMillan to consider him successful?
Yeah, I want to talk about one thing before we get to that, and that is that you've got 2 major forces here with Nate McMillan. You've got the external force, the fan base, that are, as you say, calling for his head. Anytime anything goes wrong, it's always Nate's fault. It's always Miles's fault. They have scapegoats that they target every single time. It's very consistent, like clockwork. But then you have the internal forces, and we've spoke about it with Scott Agnes. We spoke about it when we talked about Victor Oladipo's future. Jay Michael tweeted about it. There is a clear gap here. There is a clear relationship gap here between one of our all-stars and our head coach. I don't think that you can deny that. I think there's too many tweets about it. I think Tony East accidentally called Victor Oladipo Nate the other day, and Victor Oladipo acted like Tony East had just farted in his face. Like, the eyes were as wide as they could possibly go and as offended as they could possibly be that you would call that guy Nate. And you can't deny that there is a clear chemistry issue between our most highly played player and our head coach.
From the outside, why? Like, why would Vic not like Nate?
I don't know. I can't. It's impossible. It's one of those things where if Vic leaves or if Nate leaves, we'll get the Jackie McMillan piece 6 months later that details 5 different events that, led to the sacking or led to the free agency decision or the trade or whatever. We will not find this out until after the fact, a la Paul George. But there is a clear distinction there, or a clear problem there that exists, and there's going to have to be potentially a decision that occurs of, do we potentially trade Victor Oladipo ahead of his free agency because there is a significant chance that he chooses to leave if Nate continues to coach? Do we make a decision and a change at the coaching panel to appease Victor Oladipo and potentially get him to stay, which may not even work as well? And you're talking about a coach that has, you're right, made the playoffs, overachieved based on the roster, based on the predictions that everyone's had of this team. But Alex, I don't think there's any denying that there's a problem here and that we're coming towards a decision having to be made by the organization.
Well, I just want to say that if Vic's only issue with the Indiana franchise is Nate McMillan, I mean, he's got 1 year left on his deal. If you're KP, you just go, you know what, respectfully, I'm going to do what's best for the franchise here. Our franchise guy, we have a chance to sign him for another 5 years if we move you on. I don't think that doesn't get done. But I also want to say, just on the scapegoats, is that I wish Pacers Twitter, and I've said this throughout the year, man, I don't have a problem with you criticizing players. We do it here as well. I don't have a problem with people criticizing players or coaches. But please, please keep that same energy. Don't go, 5-8 after every loss and then be dead silent.
Silence.
Every time we win.
Yep.
Don't go trade Miles every time he has a bad game. And then when he drops 20 points, you don't tweet. You know what I'm saying? So I just hope that, for everyone listening that's on that train, just keep that same energy. If you're going to be so loud one day, you got to be just as loud the next. And that's what we do on the podcast. I feel like, especially with you, Justin, with Aaron Holiday, you're the perfect example. When he has a bad game, you're on it. But then when he has a good game, you're the first person to compliment him. So that's all I'm saying.
You're 100% right, Alex. I'm harder on Aaron Holiday than anyone, but I talk about to you guys, he's playing great. He's shutting me up, and it's good to see. I actually want him to succeed, whereas some other fans, if they've got a vendetta against someone, it seems like they want him to fail, which you're not a true fan. But again, like I asked you to, and no one can answer it, is what does Nate McMillan have to do to surpass it? Is it a second round exit?
Win 82 games.
And that's my thing. Pacers were probably tipped to be 8th or 9th seed this year. Again, he's exceeded expectations. Now, I know if you don't win in the playoffs, it doesn't mean anything. But, Adam, we can't fire Nate McMillan if we get it out the first round, can we?
There's two things that I want to see in an NBA coach, or in any coach for that matter, in any sporting organisation. And I'll echo this with the team that I support in the Australian Football League, which is the Geelong Cats. They've constantly, made the conference final equivalent over the last, 7 or 8 years, but always fallen short of making the finals. And they're very similar in terms of the issue that I have with the coaches, or if I have any issue, and it's very, very minor, but I want to see consistency, which we have. We know that we have consistency, but I want to see evolution. And at the moment, I can say for both of the major sporting organizations that I support, up until the bubble, Nate had not shown a tendency to evolve, particularly on the offensive end. The defensive end was obviously something that always has existed, but offensively, we talked about before the start of the season that the Pacers wanted to shoot 33s a game. We very rarely got there before the bubble occurred. Since the bubbles happened, we've consistently shot over 33s a game. Where are we?
You also have to remember that our best player is a 20-something% three-point shooter. So
I agree with that. But at the same time, every other player on the floor can shoot threes. So, but we've consistently made something an emphasis and potentially not followed through there. So for me, I think I can understand the fans' frustration. I don't think it's warranted to want Nate to be fired or to want Nate to be gone. I think that's completely unfair. However, I think we need to see evolution somewhere along the line, and we're starting to see it in the bubble out of pure necessity, nothing else. So the hope that I have is that the experience in this bubble is so good, the offense is so good consistently, that Nate is forced to then look and say, I might actually need to evolve this longer term. I might need to make sure that this offensive scheme comes into the 21st century a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, and you've worded that really well. And I do agree with parts of it, but I just don't know how you could sit and watch Pacers this year and be like, oh, God, without Nate McMillan would be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know any coach, but maybe one or two, that could have us with a better record than we do right now. Honestly, like everyone's fire Nate. Okay, then what? Who are we getting? We're not getting Greg Popovich. We're not. I remember Heat fans in their championship run. They wanted Eric Spoelstra fired. Yep. They wanted him gone. LeBron wanted him gone. Pat Riley stuck with him, and look what happened. Sometimes just firing a coach isn't the best thing to do. And yeah, I'm still all ears on who this magical coach is coming to Indiana, leading us to a championship next year. Alex is laughing because he knows I'm right.
No one can give you an answer. Yeah, where are we looking moving forward? I mean, there is no candidate. There is no silver bullet here that you can put in the bench and say, oh, now we're going to win the next 3 championships. No worries.
Unless Reggie Miller wants to start coaching in the next year.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, I think all of us can agree that Nate has done everything possible to ensure his position next year. If Nate leaves the franchise over the summer, it will either be his choice or it will not be due to what we produced on the floor. It will be due to something outside of his control. And what's within his control is the wins that we've had. He deserves to stay.
I think if we don't get out of the first round next year, no matter what happens, even if he's had bad luck with Oladipo injuries, Sabonis injuries next year, it's like, hey, it's been 7 years. This hasn't worked out. Yeah. You have to let him ride his contract out. He's had so much bad luck. We could have got out the first round and beat bloody LeBron in the first round if it wasn't for that goaltending call. He's had a lot of bad luck. I think as of next year, you go, okay, you've had enough time. We haven't got out the first round. We expect more as a franchise. But this year, no matter what happens in the playoffs, barring like a disgraceful sweep, I think he's safe. But that's me.
Alex, is he safe?
Oh, 100%. I think, especially when you consider the relationship he has with KP going back to the Trailblazers. I know people are going to say that probably doesn't mean a lot, but at the end of the day, he's going to let him ride his contract out. And I think he deserves it. We've talked about that. But it's going to be interesting to see because we talk about Vic in his contract year a lot. It's Nate's contract year as well. So you got 2 guys with a lot to prove. I think if the Pacers are fully healthy next year, I see no reason why they can't be a top 2 or 3 seed. So, I think it's going to be a big year for him.
Let's throw the cards on the table then, Justin. Victor Oladipo walks into KP's office and says, it's me or Nate.
It's a player-driven league. We know what happens with that. I think 100 times out of 100, the coach is gone.
But is that the right decision?
Yes. Yeah. And that's me being honest. Like, you got to keep your star player happy. Unfortunately, LeBron chooses his head coach wherever he's at. He's basically the coach. I'm not saying Vic's on LeBron's level, but it's just what the NBA is. If the star player wants a different coach, then it's going to happen. But, we've mentioned about this bubble in the playoffs. I think it determines so much for the Pacers.
So much riding on it.
Just so much. Like, even a little win against Lakers can determine so much on Oladipo's decision if he thinks, is this a championship contending team? If KP, what does he want to do with the team? What happens with Nate? I think in a month, there's going to be so many storylines. We mentioned it last week with what happens with this team. If we go deep into the second round, who knows, Eastern Conference Finals, it just changes the whole outlook.
And, you also have to look at, I guess, the parallels with TJ Warren being on $10 million a year over the next couple of years and, what Golden State had 6 years ago. Now, I'm not comparing TJ Warren to Steph Curry, but what I am saying is that if TJ Warren makes this leap permanent and he becomes an all-star, all of a sudden our roster is in the position where we're paying one of the best players on our roster a third of what he'd make anywhere else. And we have the opportunity to be able to have 2 years to take advantage of that opportunity and pay others, bring other players in, potentially upgrade a position or two and make an honest run at an NBA championship. And it, unfortunately, a lot of this is luck. a lot of this will be that you happen upon a player that is either on their rookie deal or severely underpaid that's way outperforming the contract that they're on. And we've got an opportunity here where we're paying, Domas Miles in the teens, Brogdon in the 20s, and Victor in the 20s too. If we deem there to be an upgrade there, then we have the opportunity to upgrade and really put all our eggs in that basket and go for it next year. And I agree that, Nate's got every chance of leading us to a championship. It just remains to be seen what roster he takes there, and whether he's given that opportunity by the franchise, but also the franchise's star.
Yeah, I think next year's our year to really contend for the Eastern Conference, and it's going to be interesting. And just want to touch on, I know we've only got a few minutes left. We always try and end on something around the NBA or, not Pacer related. Alex, have you seen Paul George in the news today?
Even Damian Lillard, your boy, Dame Dollar, going at it, mate.
Did you see, what were your thoughts on Pat Bev's reaction when they missed the free throws? Did you like it, or do you think it's a bit unsportsmanlike?
I mean, they're competitors, man. I mean, they would both do the same thing, wouldn't they? I feel like. So at the end of the day, leave it on the court. It's all good.
It's just funny, right, where Draymond Green was on TNT before and he said, well, Damian Lillard actually spat facts. So it's interesting to see maybe the wider NBA community opinion on Paul George, because Damian Lillard obviously had a dig saying, just go to another team. You haven't done shit, essentially. Yeah. And people are agreeing with it. So it's quite funny to see.
Well, people hate Paul George, so
yeah,
he's not liked by the masses. So that doesn't really surprise me.
He's not a popular guy around the league for, I think, what he's pulled over the last few years. And clearly, Pacers fans, that still cuts deep and will for a while. I still wear my Paul George jersey from time to time, though. I don't forget what he achieved when he was here. But the fact is, Dame hit a shot in his face to eliminate him last year.
Dame, a lot of saltiness.
Yeah, there's a lot of saltiness. It was a bad shot, but guess what, Paul? It went in. It went in. And at the end of the day, shots shouldn't actually be graded on whether they're bad or good. Shots should be graded on whether they went in or not. And
I just feel like with Paul George, it's like I kind of want to like him. I want to say, you did so much for the Pacers, but he
makes it so hard.
I know, he just makes it so hard. I think Mark Ball reiterates the same thing. He's just really hard to. Sometimes you just shake your head and go, "Dude, what are you talking about?"
Yeah, just shut up. The L.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Always fun to talk Paul George with you guys because, there's a lot of old wounds there, and I hope the Clippers get eliminated by the Trailblazers somehow in the playoffs. That'd be really, really nice to see. Yep.
And quickly shout out to Twitter Australia, boys. TJ Warren, number one trending man in Australia over a pandemic. Who would have thought? He has like over 57,000 tweets, which, by the way, for those listening in Australia, is like what getting about 100 million in America. So this man is he's taken over worldwide.
Unbelievable. People should know TJ Bucket's name, and they certainly do now. All right, guys, that's been the Paceroos. We'll come to you after the Miami game. Stay safe out there.